Hey Fantasy Football fans, it's me, the Fantasy Football Girl, coming to you with another edition of Vlog Times. We're going to go right into Q&A for Week 6, but first I just want to quickly remind you that there is a link below here, as always, to the Fantasy Football Guys podcast. As I'm sure you're aware by now, every Thursday I do a segment with them called Start, Sit, and Extra. So be sure to give that a listen. These guys are a wealth of knowledge. You won't regret it, especially before you set your lineup on Sunday. All right, so questions. The first question is from Jay. He's having some issues at running back. He has LT, Matt Forte, and McCoy. He can start 2 of those 3. It's a standard scoring league. Who does he start? Simple answer from my perspective is that you've got to start Tomlinson and McCoy. Reason being, LT is looking like a stud. No one can deny it. While he didn't score last week, he certainly held his own against the 9th-ranked Minnesota Vikings run D. McCoy is what Philly has on the ground. Without Mike Vick, that is the run game. You've got to love McCoy in that respect. Forte, on the other hand, I think he's getting an inflated projection. He had a great week last week, but that was without Jay Cutler. A lot of people are thinking that Jay Cutler is going to be rattled. I don't think that Jay Cutler has the mental capacity to be rattled, and that's my quarterback. I don't think that concussion is going to stop him for 1 second. You're going to see old school, lovely Jay Cutler lobbing passes, INTs. That's his deal. I don't think that Forte is going to get those little dumps and break off a huge run. Just my opinion. I've been wrong before, but if I were you, I'd start LT and McCoy. All right, so Jay has another question at wide receiver. He has Braylon Edwards, Jeremy Maclin, and Mike Williams in Tampa Bay, and he can only start 1. Again, it's a standard scoring league. So simply my answer to you is Mike Williams. I get the Braylon Edwards temptation because he is seeing a lot of looks, but let's not forget, while Santonio Holmes didn't perform incredibly well last week, he is just being reacclimated into that offense and reintegrated. I think he'll have his sea legs a little more, and I think Sanchez is going to use him more, which will take away from Edwards' receptions. Maclin's certainly a good option, but let's be honest, Mike Williams has scored every single week, except for 1 week when they played the Pittsburgh Steelers defense. Come on, that is a trend you've got to love. I don't expect it'll end. Start Mike Williams. Next question, I love this one. It's a little long-winded, so bear with me. It's from Jonathan, who is a huge Kansas City Chiefs fan. However, on his fantasy team, he owns both Matt Schaub and Arian Foster, obviously of the Houston Texans, who are playing the Kansas City Chiefs this week. He wants to be able to root for the Chiefs and not have that, double-sided dilemma of your fantasy team playing them, and do you root for the team who's playing against your team, and blah, blah, blah. So he wants to know if it would be a crazy idea to sit Matt Schaub for Brett Favre of the Minnesota Vikings, obviously, who's playing the Dallas Cowboys, and if you should sit Arian Foster in favor of Ahmad Bradshaw of the New York Giants, who are playing the Detroit Lions. I totally get it. We've all done it. Here's what I think. Don't put all your eggs in one basket. Don't sit them both. Don't start them both. Split the difference. I like playing Favre over Schaub. A lot of people are talking about his elbow, but let's be honest. Brett Favre's ego is not small, unlike the rest of him, or other parts of him. So I feel like Dallas and Minnesota have the same record, right? This is going to be a war of a game, and I expect that Favre will be on the front lines doing his part. I think he can play through any amount of pain, especially given his ego. That's what he drives for. I think Favre is a great option, and I also think Schaub's having some difficulty because that wide receiving core of his is so banged up. And the Kansas City defense has looked really spry. So I feel like, sure, start Favre, sit Schaub. Running back, however, you got to start Arian Foster. Again, yes, the Kansas City defense is looking good, but it's Arian Foster. Come on. And I get the temptation of starting Bradshaw instead because, he's going to be running against the Detroit Lions defense. However, the Detroit Lions defense, I don't think is as bad as they are ranked. They did 2 weeks ago hold both Brandon Jackson and John Kuhn. Last week they stopped Steven Jackson. I'm a little nervous about that. So I think it's in your best interest to start Favre, sit Schaub, start Foster, sit Bradshaw, unless you have a flex in which you could put Bradshaw in. That might be an option too. Okay, so next question is from Thomas. It's a trade question. He'd be acquiring Antonio Gates and giving up Reggie Wayne. He has at wide receiver right now Larry Fitzgerald, Reggie Wayne, Jeremy Maclin, and then a lot of garbage. Donnie Avery, Derek Mason, Nate Washington, and Steve Johnson. So really he's got 3 starting receivers, Fitzgerald, Wayne, and Maclin. At tight end, he has Heath Miller and Tony Moeaki. So is it worth it for him to give away Wayne in and receive Gates instead? I say no. I would pass on this trade. I totally get the temptation. I totally understand. Gates is a monster. Any fantasy owner is blessed to have him, except Heath Miller might do very well now for the rest of the season, considering Ben Roethlisberger is back under center this week. So I want to see what's going to happen there. Also, Tony Moeaki's looking pretty good. Certainly, neither of them is Antonio Gates caliber, but what are you going to do if you give up Wayne? Are you going to start like Derek Mason? Is Nate Washington or Steve Johnson who you're going to put in instead? I just don't think that. I think you have plenty of other options at tight end. That's a much deeper part of your roster, and at wide receiver, you just got to keep Wayne in. So that's my 2 cents. My question for you guys this week, I'm having trouble at flex. Help me out here, all right? So I've got 2 wide receivers, 2 running backs. Here's who I'm starting, Hakeem Nicks and Brandon Marshall. At wide receiver, running back, I'm going to start MJD and Arian Foster. At flex, I can start either Mike Tolbert, and the Chargers are playing the St. Louis Rams, or I can start Mike Williams in Tampa Bay playing New Orleans. What do I do? Obviously, I'm a big Mike Williams fan. You know I like him. I suggested that Jay start him earlier, but Tolbert's looking good too, you know? So any advice before Sunday would be really helpful. Let me know. Have a great weekend, guys. Kick butt on Sunday, and I will be back on Monday with Bust Bombs and Bonuses.